Welcome back to The Deep Dive, the show where we really try to cut through all the noise, find those nuggets of valuable insight from, well, mountains of information, and bring them straight to you.
That's the goal.
Today, we're plunging into a topic that honestly underpins every single construction project out there. Doesn't matter if it's a small home renovation or, some huge skyscraper.
Right.
We're talking about navigating uncertainty, specifically risk management. It's such a core skill, a core competency, really, for anyone who wants to successfully lead a build.
Absolutely essential.
Because every project, just by its nature, it's an exercise in making informed decisions when you just don't know what the future holds. And that's what we're tackling today. Our mission, if you will, is to give you a practical, really actionable guide to the formal process of risk management. Think of it as your shortcut to understanding not just what it is, but the why and the how. How do you build resilience into your projects?
Yeah, the practical side.
Exactly. And we've pulled from an incredibly rich stack of sources for this deep dive. We've got everything from the project management body of knowledge, the PMBOK guide, which is, basically the global standard for project management.
The Bible, some call it.
Pretty much, all the way to historical architectural accounts and up-to-the-minute construction management standards. Our goal is to pull all this together, synthesize it, and help you grasp what's truly important and sometimes surprising in this really complex field.
And we want to make sure you understand that successful projects, well, they aren't just visualized and built. They have to be managed through all those inevitable potential pitfalls that crop up.
Right.
It's about way more than just solving problems as they appear. It's really about foresight.
Yeah.
We're going to break this crucial process down into its key steps, make it digestible.
Okay.
So we'll cover comprehensive risk identification, thorough analysis and prioritization, proactive response planning, and importantly, continuous monitoring.
Yeah.
Our goal for you, listening in, is to gain this knowledge quickly, but also thoroughly, hopefully providing those, aha moments without you feeling like you're drowning in jargon or just too much information.
We're trying to avoid the information overload.
Exactly. Think of us as your guides, helping you cultivate that vital skill of anticipating what might happen, rather than just, reacting when it does. Hashtag tech and tech I. The foundational pillars of risk management in construction.
Okay, let's unpack this core idea then, that construction is inherently, fundamentally, an exercise in uncertainty.
It really is.
When you picture a construction project, you might think blueprints, cranes, concrete pours, the physical stuff. But our sources really hammer home this point. The very nature of building means you're constantly dealing with variables. So many variables.
Well,
We're talking about everything from, sudden freak weather, unexpected ground conditions, always a fun surprise, to material availability, which can fluctuate wildly.
and prices, too.
And prices, exactly. And let's be honest, the ever-present possibility of human error. It happens.
It does.
So what our sources collectively emphasize is that project management isn't just about perfect execution, hitting every milestone on time. It's about anticipating what could go wrong.
Yes, the what-ifs.
And strategically planning for those what-ifs. It's really about building resilience into the very fabric of your project right from day one.
And a crucial observation here comes from Construction Management Jumpstart. It frames it so clearly, it says, and I'm paraphrasing slightly, that all of the construction management functions taken together are part of the risk mitigation plan.
Wow. Okay, all of them.
All of them. This isn't just a casual remark, it's a really profound insight. It suggests that every single action you take in construction management, your initial cost estimating, your detailed scheduling, your diligent cost control, your meticulous contract administration, all of it is inherently a form of risk management.
So it's not like a separate task you do on a Friday afternoon.
Not at all. It's like the invisible operating system running underneath everything on a successful project. It's deeply woven into the entire operational DNA. It's how things get done properly.
That's a really powerful way to think about it. So the core insight here is that this completely shifts your perspective, doesn't it?
It should.
It moves you away from just thinking about, okay, how do I solve this problem now that it's happened, towards proactive strategic planning aimed at preventing problems in the first place.
Exactly. Prevention over cure.
It really underscores that managing a project is fundamentally managing its risks. You're essentially acting as the architect of stability in what can be a pretty unstable environment.
Precisely. And, the idea that the construction management function entails various tasks, such as estimating, scheduling, cost control, and contract administration in order to monitor, manage, and control the work. That quote from Construction Management Jumpstart captures it perfectly.
Right.
It's all about control. And in a world just packed with variables, control is, almost by definition, an ongoing exercise in managing risk.
That leads me to think about, the traditional image of a project manager. We often
Well,
picture them constantly in crisis mode, right? Running around, putting out fires.
the hero narrative, yeah.
Yeah, it's a common trope. But the best practice, as all our sources show, is actually to proactively identify and address potential problems before they even ignite. It's about building a robust system that actually lessens the need for those frantic last-minute interventions. It's like the difference between reacting to a burst pipe at 3 a.m. versus having a solid maintenance schedule that prevents it from ever happening.
Indeed. And the goal offers a great example. Okay, it's from manufacturing, but it illustrates this perfectly. There's a manager who has this realization. Now we know to do it ahead of time before the external pressure comes.
Before the crunch hits.
Exactly. This is the absolute essence of moving from being reactive to being proactive, forward-thinking. It's about designing systems and processes that inherently anticipate and hopefully neutralize threats before they materialize. Our episode focus nails this. Shifting the mindset from firefighting to strategic planning.
Yeah.
It's a fundamental change in how we should approach project success. Cultivating foresight, not just relying on hindsight after something's gone wrong.
Just imagine the peace of mind, right? Knowing you've anticipated potential problems, you've built in buffers, backup plans, instead of constantly scrambling to catch up.
It sounds less stressful for one.
Definitely. It's just a more efficient, less chaotic, and ultimately more successful way to operate. It turns the project journey from, a series of unplanned sprints into a well-paced strategic marathon.
And that proactive mindset, it translates directly into tangible benefits. You see it in avoiding costly delays, preventing those budget overruns, maintaining stakeholder confidence.
All crucial things.
It's not just about efficiency. It's about the overall health of the project, its reputation, and ultimately its profitability.
So considering all this, it becomes really clear that risk management isn't some one-and-done checkbox you tick off at the start of a project.
Naturally not.
It has to be an ongoing, dynamic conversation that continues throughout the entire project lifecycle, from the very first concept right through to final completion and handover.
It's a living process.
It has to adapt to new information, changing circumstances. You absolutely can't just set it and forget it.
You're spot on. The CMAA, Construction Management Standards of Practice, that's the Construction Management Association of America, they explicitly state the construction manager, or CM, establishes procedures for planning and monitoring compliance with the project timeline.
Okay.
Now, that's not just about scheduling. It speaks to a broader, continuous oversight. And then Construction Management Jumpstart talks about a continuous monitoring process used to track the variances between actual performance and planned performance, specifically concerning cost and time.
Tracking those variances.
Exactly. And project management in construction reinforces this with the need to update schedule throughout progress of the project, coordinated with scheduling changes. All these sources emphasize vigilance, adaptability, because the landscape of a project, it's always shifting, isn't it?
It never stays static. So this continuous vigilance ensures that as conditions inevitably change, and they always do, your project's risk profile adapts right along with them.
Keeps it relevant.
It allows for constant adjustment and, crucially, prevents small issues from snowballing into catastrophic failures. It's about building a project that can pivot and respond effectively rather than one that's rigidly stuck to initial, potentially outdated assumptions.
Yeah, like continuously checking the weather forecast on a long road trip, not just relying on the prediction from a week ago.
Exactly.
Right.
That adaptability is just critical in these complex, often long-duration things like construction projects. Okay, building on that point about continuous vigilance, let's now get into the tangible risks themselves, starting with step 1, comprehensive risk identification.
All right, where do we start looking?
Exactly. When we typically think of construction risks, the obvious ones pop into mind first. A sudden storm causing a weather delay, maybe a safety incident on site. And those are definitely important, no question.
They're top of mind for a reason.
But our sources reveal this much, much broader spectrum. The episode focus mentions financial, contractual, and political uncertainties. These are huge areas project managers have to grapple with.
Absolutely.
It's about looking beyond just the physical or the logistical on the site itself and really considering the entire ecosystem that surrounds a project.
Precisely. The episode focus flags these critical areas, and our sources dive deep into each one. It's about looking beyond just what's immediately visible. Think about the whole environment. The PMBO Kell Guide actually emphasizes this indirectly by talking about employing critical thinking, problem solving, and decision making while engaging in project work. That implies a project manager needs the mental agility to consider every possible facet that could impact the project. That could be anything from a shift in market interest rates, maybe the availability of skilled labor dries up, or a sudden change in local zoning laws.
Or a supply chain issue halfway around the world these days.
Exactly. Unforeseen supply chain disruptions. All of it falls under this umbrella.
So this expanded view really helps you consider all the angles, not just the technical or on-site ones, when you're assessing if a project is even viable or how to manage it.
It forces a more holistic approach.
And doing that transforms you into a more effective, more adaptable project leader. Because a narrow focus, well, it inevitably misses how interconnected all these risks really are.
It's absolutely imperative to understand that risk isn't just a static checklist you work through. It's a dynamic interplay of all these factors. So let's dive deeper into some of these categories.
Good idea. Let's zero in on financial risks first. Now, did you know, and this was an eye-opener for me, that even the seemingly straightforward act of bidding for a project carries significant financial risk for contractors?
Oh, absolutely. Huge risk.
It's not just about whether you win the job, it's the actual cost of trying to win it.
What's really insightful here is the specific detail from Construction Management by Halpin and Senior. It lays it out. The cost of the time and effort expended to develop a total bid price and submit a proposal is only recovered in the event the contractor receives the contract.
Only if you win.
Only if you win. Think about that. Contractors invest substantial resources. We're talking highly skilled people, valuable time, their proprietary estimating methods into preparing these complex bids, often for huge projects.
Yeah, it's a big investment.
Massive. So to compensate for all the bids they don't win, the text says contractors essentially place a charge in all bids to cover bid preparation costs based on how often they typically win. Their hit rate, basically.
Oh, okay, that's a powerful revelation.
It means that for every project a contractor wins, they're effectively absorbing the cost of several bids they lost. It's like this hidden, calculated tax built into the industry just so they can survive and recoup those upfront investments.
That's a huge insight, a real aha moment, like you said earlier. So if a contractor, say, wins 1 out of every 4 bids they submit, they effectively build the costs of those 3 losing bids into the price of the winning one.
That's the principle, yeah, to recover their overall investment in bidding.
Okay, but beyond the bidding stage, what about unexpected quantity changes once a project is actually underway? How are those financial ups and downs handled? And what risks do they pose?
That's where unit price contracts become really critical. They're specifically designed to address this type of risk, providing a necessary financial mechanism.
Okay.
The construction management text notes that if the actual field quantity placed deviates significantly from the guide quantity specified, and significantly usually means more than 10%, the unit price is normally renegotiated.
Ah, so there's a built-in adjustment.
Exactly. This mechanism allows for price reductions. If, say, much more material is needed than planned, the owner gets the benefit of economies of scale. But conversely, if less quantity is placed, the contractor can argue for an increase in the unit price.
Why is that?
Well, to recover their fixed costs, things like mobilization, setting up the site, their overheads, which were likely based on the larger originally anticipated quantities, it's a delicate balancing act, really, designed to ensure fairness and manage that financial exposure for both the owner and the contractor.
Understanding these built-in financial mechanisms, it just helps you appreciate the profound complexities of contract pricing and those hidden costs of uncertainty in construction. It's not just a simple lump sum figure, is it?
Not all. It's a dynamic financial ecosystem where risk is constantly being assessed, priced, and adjusted.
Which requires some serious financial acumen from the project managers involved.
Absolutely. It's a constant negotiation with potential volatility.
Okay, from the numbers, let's pivot to the words. The legally binding words that govern a project, contracts. Contractual agreements, they're supposed to be the ultimate clarifiers, right? Meticulously outlining who does what, when, how.
The bedrock of the project, ideally.
Ideally. But even these carefully crafted documents can introduce risks, especially if they aren't drafted with absolute precision or, perhaps more worryingly, if they rely on less formal arrangements.
That's a really powerful point. And it raises an important question. What about just, oral agreements, a handshake deal?
Yeah, do those hold up?
Well, project management and construction points out that surprisingly, perhaps, oral contracts are often recognized as creating the same obligation between two parties as a written contract.
Really?
Yes, legally they can be binding, but, and this is a huge but, they can also be a massive potential for disputes. Why? Because unwritten terms are notoriously difficult to prove or even agree upon later.
I can imagine. He said, she said.
Exactly. The source mentions a specific case tried in a North Carolina court where an architect did work based on a verbal agreement and then had to sue for breach of contract when things went south. It just highlights the inherent risk of ambiguity and the absolute necessity of getting everything down in writing.
That's truly insightful how something seemingly informal can lead to such formal, costly legal battles.
Okay, beyond verbal agreements, what about commitments from the project team itself? Especially on complex projects with multiple partners. How do you manage the risk of a critical team member, maybe a key design firm or specialist contractor, pulling out before the project really gets going?
That's a significant risk. The same source, Project Management and Construction, details how clauses addressing exclusivity and non-competing need to be sorted out right at the proposal stage.
Locking people in early.
Essentially, yes. These clauses are designed to prevent one party from just walking away and, say, teaming up with a competitor vying for the same project. It protects the integrity of the initial team.
Makes sense. Furthermore, it suggests the establishment of penalties if one party or the other withdraws from the proposal process. This directly manages that considerable risk of team members abandoning ship, which could force everyone else to scramble to find replacements or even abandon the whole project. It's a proactive contractual measure to bind the team together and mitigate those collaboration risks early on.
Okay, and what about those truly unpredictable major events? Things completely outside anyone's control, like a massive flood or an earthquake. How are those extreme force majeure risks handled contractually?
Construction law discusses precisely these force majeure clauses. These clauses specifically spell out the consequences, what happens when one of these unavoidable act of God type events occurs.
Okay, so they define the fallout.
They define the fallout and, crucially, allocate the risk. The legal example provided in the source is pretty stark. A contractor, which was responsible under an agreement for building and maintaining a bridge for a 7-year period, was held to be responsible for rebuilding and maintaining the bridge after it was washed away in a flood.
Wow, even after a massive flood washed it away.
Even then, because the contract likely placed that specific risk on them, this vividly illustrates how these clauses, rather than just excusing everyone, actually allocate the risk for unforeseen circumstances. And if you're not careful in negotiating them, they can place a huge burden on one party, often the contractor. It's all about defining who pays when the truly unthinkable happens.
These examples just scream the critical need for super thorough documentation, crystal clear contract language. You need to protect all parties and really define responsibilities clearly in the face of all this uncertainty.
You have to think through every possible scenario, no matter how unlikely it seems, and legally codify the responses.
Because the default legal position, if you don't spell it out, could be surprisingly tough, right?
Exactly. It can sometimes shift way more risk onto the contractor than they might have initially anticipated.
Okay, let's talk about time. Time is money, they say, and nowhere is that truer than in construction. What kind of scheduling issues represent significant, often really costly risks that project managers are constantly battling?
Well, if we connect this back to the bigger picture, construction management by Halpin and Senior illustrates a really critical concept regarding float. It says total float cannot be used without potentially having an effect on following activities.
Okay, remind us what total float is again.
Right, so total float is basically the amount of time a specific task or activity can be delayed without actually delaying the entire project's final completion date. It's like a buffer for that specific task.
A bit of wiggle room.
Exactly. But here's the catch, as the source points out. Using up that wiggle room, that float, for one non-critical task can have a knock-on effect. It might consume the buffer time needed for subsequent tasks down the line, potentially turning them critical and directly impacting the overall project duration.
The ripple effect.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And the CMAA construction management standards also note that recovering from these schedule slippages is a constant ongoing activity for the construction manager. It's a daily battle to keep things on track and manage that float effectively.
So it's not just about hitting individual deadlines, it's about understanding the interconnectedness, that ripple effect of delays throughout the entire project schedule. That's a crucial distinction.
Absolutely.
And beyond delays to individual activities, what about systemic issues? Things that impact the entire flow of work, like a bottleneck.
Bottlenecks. This raises an important question.
Mhm.
And the goal uses this brilliant manufacturing analogy to explain them. It describes a scenario where new orders have changed the balance in the system.
Okay.
This drastically reduced the spare capacity on the non-bottlenecks, but, and here's the key, they didn't compensate by increasing the inventory in front of the bottleneck.
Can you break that down?
Yeah, imagine a highway. If one lane is blocked, that's your bottleneck speeding up traffic in all the other lanes. Doesn't actually help if they all eventually have to merge back into that one slow lane, right?
Right, you just get a bigger traffic jam before the bottleneck.
Exactly. This is a classic example of how a system's delicate balance, or the lack of it, creates significant time risks. The bottleneck constrains the overall output, the overall speed of the project, causing downstream delays, even if other parts of the system are technically working efficiently.
Understanding that ripple effect of delays and the critical, often hidden role of these bottlenecks, it really helps you appreciate the delicate balance in project scheduling and why even seemingly small disruptions can have massive consequences later on.
You have to see the project as a living system where every part affects the whole, and capacity needs to be managed strategically, especially around those choke points.
Ignoring a bottleneck is like, well, like you said, trying to pour a gallon of water through a tiny funnel. No matter how hard you push, the flow rate is limited by that smallest opening.
Precisely. You have to manage the bottleneck itself.
Okay, let's shift to quality. Building something right the first time seems obvious, but it's absolutely crucial, isn't it? Not just for safety and how it looks, but for the project budget and timeline too. So, what are the quality-related risks that emerge from our sources? How do they show up in the real world of construction?
Well, quality control, fundamentally, is a continuous effort to mitigate these risks. Practitioner's Guide to Essential Lean Research gives a very direct, very relatable example. It says, suppose an error on a drawing is discovered after the drawing has been issued for fabrication, but before fabrication starts.
Okay, catching it just in time.
Hopefully. But that's a clear quality risk right there. If that error isn't caught early, it could lead to incredibly costly rework, significant material waste, substantial delays further down the line,
Yeah.
potentially impacting the entire project's schedule and budget.
Yeah, imagine a whole batch of custom steel beams being made to the wrong dimensions.
The cost and time to fix that would be astronomical. It's a classic quality risk stemming from design information.
Okay, so beyond human error in design or drawings, what about the actual ground beneath our feet? What are the inherent quality risks associated with site conditions? Those things that are often out of our direct control.
Though site conditions are a major factor, they often present some of the most fundamental quality and performance risks in a project. Building Construction Illustrated highlights this starkly. Unstable soils may render a site unbuildable unless an elaborately engineered and expensive foundation system is put in place.
Unbuildable, that's a huge risk.
It's critical. It demands early identification, think geotechnical surveys, and robust solutions. I remember one project where we learned about unstable soils the hard way. Let's just say my team got very, very good at emergency concrete pours that week.
Oh, wow. Trial by fire, or rather, trial by mud.
Pretty much.
Ah.
The source then goes on to mention potential solutions like engineered fill, where earth is carefully placed in layers and compacted to achieve specific strength properties, or using compacted gravel fill, or something called controlled low-strength material, CLSM. Think of it as a very fluid, self-leveling, almost concrete-like mix. It's used specifically to stabilize questionable soils or backfill trenches easily, mitigating that risk of an unstable foundation.
So this just demonstrates how a deep understanding of the specific site conditions, coupled with robust quality checks from meticulous design reviews right down to thorough soil analysis, are absolutely essential. Essential for structural integrity and essential for avoiding those incredibly costly mistakes later on.
It's about getting the foundation right, both the literal foundation in the ground and the foundational data in the plans and drawings. Errors in either one can be absolutely catastrophic.
Safety on site and the project's environmental impact. These aren't just regulatory hurdles anymore, are they? They feel like non-negotiable ethical and practical imperatives in modern construction. What are the key risks here, and how are they managed according to our sources?
Yeah, they're fundamental now. And what's interesting is how detailed the CMAA construction management standards of practice are regarding safety. They really emphasize a proactive, almost community-integrated approach.
Oh,
Well, it stresses that the construction manager's safety representative should actually contact local authorities prior to bid to determine the availability of ambulance service, emergency response police, and fire units.
before bidding, that's really early.
Exactly. This isn't about just having a plan for after an incident happens. It's about proactive coordination and planning before any work even begins. Ensuring emergency services are aware of the project, its location, its potential hazards, and are prepared to respond effectively if needed. It's like mapping out the emergency response network before the first shovel hits the dirt.
That's incredible foresight, essentially pre-planning the emergency response itself. That's a powerful form of risk mitigation right there.
It really is.
And what about the constant inherent dangers on an active construction site, beyond coordinating with external emergency services?
Practitioner's Guide to Essential Lean Research offers a chilling but very realistic scenario. A construction worker was injured when struck by a wrench dropped from a higher elevation.
Oof. Yeah, that happens.
It does. And according to this source, that kind of incident should immediately trigger what they call a detect, correct, analyze, prevent cycle, or DCAPE.
DCAPE. Okay.
It's not just about treating the injury, the correct part. It's about immediately alerting the work area, maybe stopping work below, and critically, the analyze part, understanding the why behind it. Why was the wrench dropped? Was there no tool tether? Was the work platform unsafe?
Yeah.
And then prevent, implementing measures to stop it happening again. It's a systemic approach to safety, focusing on root causes, not just reacting to the individual event.
So you're not just cleaning up the spill, metaphorically speaking, you're figuring out why the container leaked in the first place and fixing the container itself.
Exactly. It's about process improvement driven by incidents.
Okay, looking at the bigger picture then, how do projects manage their broader environmental footprint and the associated risks? These are becoming increasingly important, right? For regulations, for public perception, for financing even.
Absolutely. The CMAA construction management standards highlight the importance of maintaining thorough documentation of all environmental measures employed on the project.
Documentation again, key.
Always key. This includes, but isn't limited to, things like waste recycling, waste reduction, emissions mitigations, noise and vibrations mitigations, dust reduction efforts, etc. It demonstrates a comprehensive, documented commitment to mitigating environmental risks and ensuring sustainability is tracked and managed.
Right.
And sustainable construction elaborates on this, saying a high-performance green building delivery system needs to satisfy the owner while addressing sustainability considerations of economic, environmental, and social impact. It's presented as an integrated approach, recognizing environmental responsibility as a core project value, not just some optional extra or box to tick for compliance.
These examples just underscore that ethical and practical imperative, don't they? To prioritize human safety and ecological responsibility, integrating them right into the daily operations and the long-term planning of every construction project.
They have to be fundamental now. And that documentation aspect is crucial, not just for compliance, but for actually demonstrating the project's commitment to sustainability, especially if you're aiming for certifications like LEED or BREEAM or Green Globe.
Okay, so we've cast this really wide net. We've identified all these potential risks: financial pitfalls, unexpected site conditions, contractual tangles, safety hazards, environmental issues, a whole mountain of possibilities.
They feel overwhelming.
It really can. So the next, and arguably one of the most critical challenges, is making sense of it all. How do project managers sift through this? How do they analyze the true potential impact of each risk? And perhaps most importantly, prioritize. Which ones demand immediate, serious attention versus those they can maybe monitor or even live with?
That's exactly where the art and science of risk analysis really come into play. And while our sources don't always explicitly use the term risk matrix, the underlying principles, the core concepts, are absolutely embedded in good construction management practice.
Okay, so what are those core concepts?
Well, fundamentally, we're talking about weighing two primary factors for each identified risk. First, the likelihood or probability of that risk actually happening, and second, the consequence or impact if it does happen.
Likelihood and impact.
Yeah, exactly. You can almost picture a simple grid, right? Along one axis, you've got probability maybe rated from very low to very high. And along the other axis, you have impact ranging from negligible, maybe just a minor nuisance, all the way up to catastrophic, something that could jeopardize the entire project.
Ah, okay, so that is basically a risk matrix, a visual tool to help categorize risks quickly.
Precisely. It helps you see, almost at a glance, where you need to focus your limited resources and attention. A risk that falls into that top corner, highly likely and potentially catastrophic impact.
That's your top priority, red alert.
Absolutely. That shoots right to the top of the list. It demands immediate, robust response planning. Conversely, a risk down in the bottom corner, very low likelihood, minimal impact. Well, maybe you just need to keep an eye on it, monitor it.
Makes sense.
And the CMAA construction management standards give a practical example of this kind of impact analysis in action. They detail how a construction manager, quote, prepares an estimate of the cost of the change order, listing the anticipated labor, material, equipment, subcontract work, contractors' overhead and profit, as well as any justified impact costs.
Assessing the financial hit.
Exactly. And crucially, they also have to analyze the effect of the change on the schedule for time impact. This isn't just noting that a change happened. It's a deep quantitative and qualitative assessment of its magnitude, its cost impact, its schedule impact. That assessment directly informs where that change, that risk, sits on your conceptual risk matrix.
So this structured evaluation helps teams decide where to put their finite resources, their time, their money, their best people, focusing them on the risks that pose the greatest threat to project success.
It prevents you from getting bogged down by minor issues while a major threat looms unaddressed. It's about intelligent allocation of effort.
That makes perfect sense. You're essentially mapping out where your biggest headaches are most likely to come from. But, okay, how do we get to the why behind a risk? How do we move beyond just identifying the symptoms, the surface level problem, to understanding the true origins? Because presumably, understanding the root cause gives us better data for assessing likelihood and impact on our risk matrix, right?
This raises an important question.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right. Understanding the why is critical for accurate analysis. This is where tools like root cause analysis, or RCA, become invaluable.
RCA. Yeah.
The PMBOK guide defines root cause analysis quite simply as an analytical method used to determine the basic underlying reason that causes a variance or defect or a risk. It's about peeling back the layers of the onion, basically.
Yeah, to the core.
Exactly. And Practitioner's Guide to Essential Lean Research expands on this within that decap cycle we mentioned earlier: detect, correct, analyze, prevent. It specifically says to analyze the breakdown to root causes, perhaps using 5 whys.
The 5 whys technique.
Yeah, it's a simple but powerful technique. You just keep asking why repeatedly until you uncover the fundamental cause. So why did the concrete crack? Because the mix was wrong. Okay, why was the mix wrong? Because the supplier delivered the wrong type of aggregate. Why did they do that? Because their inventory was mislabeled in the yard. Why was it mislabeled? Because the night shift crew didn't follow the new labeling procedure correctly. Why didn't they follow it? Because they hadn't received the updated training memo yet.
Ah, so you went from a cracked wall right down to a communication and training issue.
Exactly. It shows a clear, systematic process for gaining that deeper understanding of risks, moving beyond the obvious surface problem to uncover the systemic flaws or process failures that truly caused it.
And the systematic approach, it allows you to move beyond just treating the superficial symptoms. You can actually address the true origins of the problems. By doing that, your solutions become far more effective, much more durable, and they actually prevent the problem from happening again, rather than just patching it over temporarily.
Precisely.
And crucially for our risk matrix, it gives you much more accurate data to assess the true likelihood and potential impact of similar risks on future projects, making your risk analysis much more robust and reliable over time.
Exactly right. It's about investing that time up front to understand the problem fully, which, counterintuitively perhaps, ultimately saves huge amounts of time, resources, and headache down the line by preventing recurrences. It's truly the difference between just treating a symptom and actually curing the underlying disease.
Okay, so risks have been identified, thoroughly analyzed, prioritized based on that likelihood impact thinking, maybe using a formal risk matrix, maybe just conceptually. The next critical step is deciding what you're actually going to do about them.
The action plan.
Exactly. The episode focus mentions 4 primary strategies, which seem pretty standard in risk management. You can try to avoid the risk entirely, you can mitigate its impact or likelihood, you can transfer the risk to someone else, or sometimes you just have to consciously accept it.
The classic 4. Avoid, mitigate, transfer, accept.
Let's see how our diverse sources illustrate these strategies in action in the construction world.
Right. And these four strategies, they really form the core of proactive risk management. They're what move us away from that purely reactive firefighting mode we talked about earlier.
Uh,
And while, the specific terms mitigate or transfer aren't always explicitly used in every single source text, the actions and the approaches being described very clearly fall into these four categories. So the sources give us really practical, real-world examples of each strategy that you can actually apply.
Knowing these strategies, it basically provides you with a robust mental toolkit, doesn't it, for tackling almost any project challenge. It gives you a framework for deciding the best course of action for each specific risk you face.
It creates a structured approach to what can otherwise feel like just an overwhelming deluge of potential problems coming at you. It helps you respond thoughtfully, not just reactively.
Okay, let's look at mitigation first. This often feels like the most active, the most hands-on strategy. It's about taking deliberate steps to reduce either the likelihood of a risk happening in the first place or the severity of its impact if it does occur. What kinds of practical steps do we see being taken to achieve this?
Well, many everyday actions on a construction site are actually potent forms of mitigation, even if they're not always labeled as such. Construction Management Jumpstart highlights a great simple example. When a superintendent holds a tailgate meeting on the job site to review safety procedures, that's risk management.
Right, a daily safety briefing.
Exactly. That directly reduces the likelihood of accidents and injuries by reinforcing safe work practices, discussing the day's specific hazards. It's proactive mitigation. Similarly, after an incident, like the dropped wrench example, practitioners' guide to essential lean research suggests specific actions like stop work in areas below higher work until steps are taken to prevent repetition. That's a clear, immediate mitigation measure to prevent further harm by isolating the known risk.
So mitigation covers both those preventative measures and immediate reactive controls to limit damage. Okay, how can modern technology, particularly something like building information modeling, BIM, play a role in more advanced mitigation strategies, especially for those complex design and coordination risks?
BIM. This is where it gets really interesting. A crucial aspect that jumps out from the sources is the powerful, compelling case for BIM made in the BIM handbook.
Okay.
It explicitly states that BIM enables virtual construction. Think about that. It lets managers literally practice putting the pieces together before they actually commit to the labor and materials.
Building it digitally first?
Precisely. This means they can explore product and process alternatives, make changes to parts, and adapt the construction procedures in advance, all within the computer model. This virtual environment allows for the identification and, crucially, the mitigation of design conflicts. Construction clashes like a pipe hitting a duct long before they manifest physically on site, where fixing them is incredibly expensive and time-consuming.
Finding problems with a mouse click instead of a jackhammer.
That's a good way to put it. The handbook also points out BIM's capability for automatic low-level corrections when changes are made to design. This is huge for preventing basic geometry errors, alignment issues, spatial coordination mistakes automatically as the design evolves.
Wow.
And the CMAA construction management standards underscore this too, stating the CMRE should encourage the full use of the BIM to address problems and facilitate solutions, and specifically for clash detection. It directly mitigates those coordination risks that plague so many projects.
That's a profound shift, isn't it? From discovering costly problems out in the field, often after concrete is poured, to resolving them virtually, maybe just with a few clicks of a button weeks or months earlier.
It's a game changer for mitigation, absolutely.
Okay, beyond technology, what about good old-fashioned human interaction and communication? How important is that as a mitigation strategy, especially now with teams often spread out geographically?
Hugely important. The PMBOK guide places a really strong emphasis on communication and collaboration as a fundamental mitigation strategy. It advises practical things like ensure there are collaboration sites, share digital workspaces, and have a project team site to keep all relevant project information accessible to everyone.
Centralizing information.
Yes. And crucially, it also recommends using audio and video capabilities for meetings, not just relying on email, and importantly, to build in time to get to know remote project team members. It even suggests having at least one face-to-face meeting to establish relationships, if possible.
Building that personal connection.
Exactly. Because strong interpersonal relationships, fostered through clear, open communication channels, significantly reduce the risk of misunderstandings, misalignments, conflicts, all those human-centric risks that can derail a project, especially when teams are working remotely. Building trust is a massive mitigator.
So whether it's through cutting-edge tech like BIM or through fundamental human connection and clear communication, mitigation is ultimately about taking deliberate, proactive action to reduce the chances of a negative outcome.
It's about being proactive, thoughtful, and using all the tools at your disposal, technological and human, to make the unpredictable more manageable and the complex more coherent.
All right, sometimes maybe the smartest strategy isn't to try and reduce a risk yourself, but actually to shift the burden and transfer that risk to another party who might be better equipped or contractually obligated to handle it. How do projects typically go about transferring risk based on our sources?
Well, the episode focus explicitly mentions the most common example, purchasing insurance. That's the classic risk transfer mechanism.
Right, insurance.
Now, while our sources don't dive into the intricate details of buying specific insurance policies for construction like builder's risk or professional indemnity, the goal, interestingly, does implicitly acknowledge its role in the business world. It mentions the Egon Group, one of the world's largest insurers, just in passing during an interview.
Ah, okay. So it acknowledges insurance exists as a tool.
Exactly. It tacitly confirms that insurance is a standard, ubiquitous tool used across industries, including construction, for transferring financial risk. You pay a premium, and in exchange, the insurance company assumes the financial burden if certain specified negative events, certain risks, occur. It's a fundamental way businesses manage their financial exposure.
Okay, so insurance is the big one. Are there other ways to transfer risk, perhaps through specific contractual obligations or maybe partnerships that effectively reallocate responsibility for certain outcomes?
Absolutely. Contracts are a huge vehicle for risk transfer. The CMAA construction management standards provide an excellent example related to BIM again. They state that the builder should be contractually obligated to use the model BIM to ensure project coordination.
Making it a requirement in the contract.
Precisely. By embedding this requirement directly into the contract, the responsibility and therefore a significant portion of the risk related to coordination errors, clashes, and the resulting delays or rework is legally transferred to the builder.
Okay.
This makes the builder accountable for utilizing that specific risk-reducing tool, BIM, effectively, and resolving any coordination issues that arise from it. It shifts the burden of managing those model-based coordination issues away from, say, the owner or the construction manager and onto the builder, who is often in the best position to actually execute on it day to day.
So transferring risk allows you to protect your project, protect its finances, by strategically sharing potential liabilities, either with specialists like insurers or through these carefully crafted formal agreements and contracts.
It's about recognizing when someone else is better positioned, either financially or operationally, to manage a particular threat effectively. It's not about avoiding risk entirely, but optimizing who is best placed to manage it and at what cost. It's a very pragmatic choice in many situations.
Okay, what about those risks that, well, you just can't seem to avoid or effectively mitigate or practically transfer? Is simply accepting them a valid strategy, or is that just a sign of giving up when all else fails?
Oh, it absolutely is a valid strategy, provided, and this is the key caveat, it's an informed acceptance. It's a conscious decision, not just passive resignation or ignoring the problem.
Informed acceptance, okay.
The CMAA construction management standards give a classic example of this in practice. They tell us that design contingencies should be set for each of the cost verification stages.
Ah, contingency funds.
Exactly. This is a perfect example of accepting a known unknown. You anticipate, that some unforeseen costs or scope changes are likely to arise during the design and construction phases. It's almost inevitable.
Yeah, something always comes up.
Right. So instead of trying fruitlessly to eliminate every single potential tiny variation, you acknowledge its potential inevitability and you proactively prepare for its financial impact by setting aside a dedicated contingency fund.
Building in a buffer for the unexpected.
Precisely. The text even notes that the project team determines the percentage allowable for design and construction contingencies on an individual project basis. This shows it's a deliberate, calculated choice based on the project's specific risk profile, not just a surrender. You're essentially giving yourself permission to be surprised, but only within a certain predefined financial envelope.
That makes perfect sense. You proactively build in that buffer for the unavoidable things you can't specifically predict. Okay, shifting gears slightly. On a more philosophical level, what does it truly mean to accept uncertainty in a world where, let's face it, we constantly strive for control and predictability?
That's a deep question. If we connect this to the bigger picture, Thinking in Systems by Donella Meadows offers some really profound insight into this mindset. She writes, "The future can't be predicted, but it can be envisioned and brought lovingly into being. Systems can't be controlled, but they can be designed and redesigned."
Designed and redesigned.
Yeah, and she continues, "We can't surge forward with certainty into a world of no surprises, but we can expect surprises and learn from them and even profit from them."
Expect surprises and learn from them.
It's such a powerful perspective. It encourages resilience, adaptability, continuous learning, all of which are absolutely essential for accepting and navigating the inherent uncertainties, not just in complex projects, but really in life itself. It frames acceptance not as defeat, but as a strategic, dynamic engagement with reality. It actually allows you to cultivate a mindset where challenges become opportunities for learning and improvement.
So strategic acceptance, then, it isn't about giving up at all. It's about acknowledging what you genuinely cannot control, backing that acknowledgement up with practical measures like financial contingencies, and crucially, cultivating a flexible, resilient mindset that allows you to move forward effectively despite that inherent unpredictability.
It transforms potential roadblocks from just being problems into being opportunities for learning, adaptation, and redesigning the system for the better.
Okay, we've really hammered home that risk management isn't a static plan set in stone at the beginning. It's a continuous living process. So after all that meticulous identification, analysis, and response planning, how do projects actually keep track of the identified risks? And how do they adjust their plans as needed throughout the project's often long duration?
Yeah, the keeping it alive part is crucial. A continuous monitoring process is absolutely vital. Construction Management Jumpstart emphasizes this specifically in its definition of cost control. It calls it a continuous monitoring process used to track the variances between actual performance and planned performance on a project, specifically concerning cost and time.
Tracking those variances again.
Always tracking the variances, but that core principle, continuous monitoring, comparing actual versus planned, extends to all identified risks, not just cost and time. It's about constantly comparing what's happening out on the ground or in the contracts or with the stakeholders to what was planned or assumed back in the office, and immediately identifying any deviations, any emerging issues.
You need eyes and ears on the project constantly.
All the time, across all areas.
So it's about constant vigilance over all those project parameters. But what about adapting to new information or maybe emerging problems that weren't even on the radar initially? Maybe totally new risks that arise mid-project. How do teams stay agile enough to deal with the truly unexpected?
That's where formal communication and review processes come in. The CMAA construction management standards highlight one key mechanism. All claims and potential claims should be discussed weekly at the progress meetings.
Weekly discussion of claims. Okay.
This mandates a regular, frequent forum specifically designed for identifying new risks, like potential claims, reassessing any changes in existing risks, and adapting the response plans accordingly. It ensures that these emerging issues are brought into the light quickly, discussed openly, and addressed promptly, rather than being left to fester under the surface and potentially grow into much bigger problems later on.
Keeping things from getting buried.
Exactly. The standards also mention the construction manager providing ongoing cost monitoring as may be necessary to assist the design professional in maintaining compliance with the construction budget, further emphasizing this continuous oversight and adjustment loop. It's about being responsive, not just reactive, and having a formal mechanism built into the project rhythm for doing that.
So those regular check-ins, those mandated open communication channels, they really are your best defense against unexpected deviations. They're the key to maintaining control in what's always a dynamic environment.
It's about fostering a culture of constant awareness and adaptability within the team, making sure everyone is on the same page about the ever-evolving risk landscape. It ensures the project team is always operating with the most current understanding of its risks, ready to pivot or adjust strategies as needed.
Okay. Beyond just tracking variances and adjusting plans, how do construction teams truly learn from project challenges? How do they transform setbacks into future strengths and actually build institutional knowledge so they don't repeat the same mistakes?
The learning loop. This is where that detect, correct, analyze, prevent cycle, the DCAP cycle from Practitioner's Guide to Essential Lean Research, becomes so powerful again.
DCHAP. Let's recap it.
Right. Think of it as a systematic learning process, triggered by any problem or deviation. It's not enough to simply detect breakdowns, variations from what was planned or expected, and then take corrective action so production can continue.
Yeah.
Those are just the immediate
Or
responses.
it's firefighting part.
Exactly. The crucial, deeper steps are to thoroughly analyze the breakdown to root causes using techniques like the 5 whys we discussed, really digging deep, and then to develop and test countermeasures in order to prevent reoccurrence.
Analyze and prevent. That's the learning part.
That's the institutional learning.
Yeah.
It transforms every single problem, every risk event, into an opportunity for systemic long-term improvement. So the example of the dropped wrench injuring a worker, it triggers not just immediate medical treatment and securing the area, detect a record of a full decap cycle to understand why it happened, analyze poor training, wrong equipment, unsafe procedure, and then implementing changes to prevent it from happening again anywhere on the site or even future projects. Prevent.
This framework really allows you to transform every setback, every deviation, every unexpected event into a genuine learning opportunity. It makes your future projects not just more resilient, but actually intelligently designed to avoid those past pitfalls.
It's the ultimate continuous improvement mechanism specifically tailored for risk management. It shifts the focus away from blaming individuals towards improving the system, which is really a hallmark of truly effective and mature risk management practices. #3, real-world applications and analogies. #A, lessons from engineering visionaries.
Okay, let's turn to a historical example now. A case of truly radical risk management, maybe, that highlights the power of conviction and genuine foresight. We're talking about Isambard Kingdom Brunel, legendary British engineer, right? Responsible for everything from groundbreaking bridges to revolutionary steamships.
An absolute giant of engineering.
And he took a remarkably bold stance when he was involved in designing the Great Western Railway, connecting London to Bristol.
Yes, the story from the biography Isambard Kingdom Brunel is fascinating. What's truly striking is that when he was given the opportunity to survey the road for this railway, Brunel apparently scorned to betray his own judgment by compromising with the railway committee's wishes.
He scorned them. Strong word.
Very strong. He didn't just disagree politely, he took this principled, unwavering stand. He told them bluntly, paraphrase, he would not enter for such a competition. They wanted multiple cheap options surveyed because he was convinced that it was the wrong approach to the problem and would only lead to trouble later.
He saw future problems in their approach.
Exactly. He had the foresight. Instead, he declared he would only agree to survey only one road from Bristol to London, and that would be the best, not the cheapest.
The best, not the cheapest. Bold move.
Incredibly bold. This is such a powerful illustration of actively avoiding future risks, operational risks, safety risks, maintenance risks, by prioritizing quality, long-term foresight, and the absolute integrity of the engineering design over immediate cost savings or just appeasing committee demands. He essentially foresaw that a cheap compromise approach would inevitably lead to greater problems, higher long-term costs, and potential failures down the line. He built risk avoidance into the project from its very inception by insisting on the optimal, most robust solution.
Brunel's story, it really teaches us that true vision in engineering, and by extension in project management, often means having the courage, the conviction to do things the right way, even if it's not the easiest path or the cheapest option in the short term, precisely because that avoids those greater, potentially catastrophic risks further down the line.
It's a long-term investment in future stability and performance. It's a clear demonstration that sometimes choosing the best technical option is actually the strongest form of risk management you can employ. His approach really embodies that strategic acceptance of a potentially higher initial cost, specifically to mitigate profound future operational, safety, and reputational risks. He understood, intuitively perhaps, that cutting corners up front rarely, if ever, pays off in the long run for complex infrastructure. #B, universal principles from different industries.
Okay, but risk management isn't just for these massive nation-building construction projects or legendary engineers like Brunel. A seemingly simple, everyday problem like just managing office supplies can actually reveal equally profound and universally applicable risk management principles. We found a great example of this in the business novel, The Goal.
Yeah, this raises an important question. How do these principles apply in completely different contexts? The Goal provides this really insightful anecdote. A manager in the story realizes that their customers are complaining heavily about the price of office supplies.
Okay, standard complaint.
Right, but the manager digs deeper and finds out it's not really because the unit price of the pens or paper clips is too high. The real issue, the hidden cost driver, was that the customers couldn't control the tremendous cost of having to stock supplies and store them and the cost of bringing the stuff to the right people in the building.
Ah, the logistics and management costs.
Exactly, the hidden costs of managing that internal supply chain. including things like overconsumption, supplies becoming obsolete or damaged in storage, and, let's be honest, theft.
Yeah, shrinkage, they call it euphemistically.
Right. The manager in the book candidly admits, regarding the overconsumption, that of course it was theft. So the innovative solution they came up with was to offer cabinets full of office supplies placed right in the customer's offices. But here's the key. The cabinets and the contents were still owned by the supplier.
Okay, like a vending machine model almost.
Kind of. The supplier replenished these cabinets every week, and items were only considered sold based on whatever they took out. This system ingeniously mitigated all those risks for the customer. The risk of overstocking, the risk of mismanagement, the risk of supplies going bad, and importantly, the risk of shrinkage or theft. It transformed a simple product sale into a managed service, addressing the customer's real underlying cost and risk problem.
That's brilliant. It demonstrates that those fundamental risk management principles, identifying the true cost drivers, understanding where waste and loss are actually occurring, and then designing a system or a process to mitigate those specific risks, they apply right across the board, from huge construction sites to the daily operational logistics of an office.
It's all about applying that logical, critical thinking to any problem, big or small, to uncover the underlying risks and inefficiencies. It's a perfect example of how that same detect, correct, analyze, prevent mindset can be applied to vastly different contexts, leading to innovative solutions that boost efficiency and cut losses dramatically. Hashtag episode outro.
So what does this all boil down to for you, our listener, in your projects, whatever their scale, whatever their industry? We've taken a really deep dive today into how effective risk management, particularly in construction, but with lessons for everyone, is about so much more than just reacting to problems as they pop up.
It's way beyond firefighting.
It really is. It's a proactive, it's an ongoing, and it's a deeply strategic discipline that, honestly, can make or break a project's success.
Absolutely.
We've explored that whole expansive landscape of risk identification, moving beyond just the obvious stuff to consider those crucial financial, contractual, schedule, quality, safety, and environmental domains. We've seen how powerful strategies like mitigation using advanced tools like BIM, or just better communication, or transferring risk through insurance and smart contracts, and even that informed acceptance backed by strategic contingencies.
Yeah.
How critical all these are for achieving project success.
Ultimately, it all comes back to making informed decisions in the face of what is always an unpredictable future. And, thinking in systems reminds us again, while the future can't be predicted, it can be envisioned and brought lovingly into being. And that systems can't be controlled, but they can be designed and redesigned.
Designed and redesigned. I like that.
Yeah. And the conclusion is powerful. We can't surge forward with certainty into a world of no surprises, but we can expect surprises and learn from them and even profit from them. This really calls for our full humanity, doesn't it? Our rationality, yes, but also our intuition, our compassion, our vision. Not just cold calculation, to navigate this complex world of systems and surprises with resilience and maybe even a bit of grace.
That's a really powerful thought to end on. True risk management, then, it means cultivating not just a toolkit of processes and techniques like a risk matrix or RCA, but developing a flexible, resilient mindset. A mindset that actually embraces uncertainty, expects surprises, and learns actively from every single challenge, every single setback.
It's a constant journey of improvement, transforming every potential negative into a stepping stone for future success. A journey that really benefits from both that rigorous analysis we've discussed and a deep appreciation for the dynamic, often surprising, nature of reality.
Absolutely. Okay, consider this as we wrap up today's deep dive. If common sense is not so common and is the highest praise we give to a chain of logical conclusions, as Eli Goldratt suggests in The Goal, then perhaps the most profound risk we all face isn't actually external. It's not the sudden storm or the broken contract or the unstable soil.
What is it then?
Maybe it's our own internal failure to consistently apply what we logically know to be true, what our common sense tells us, to the complex systems we design and manage every day. It's about having the discipline, the courage to implement that common sense consistently, even when it's difficult.
That's a really valuable thought to carry forward. Questioning our own assumptions, strengthening our resolve to build not just physical structures or successful projects, but resilience itself.
Well said. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into risk management. Keep questioning, keep learning, and we'll see you next time.